January 6th still lit that fire. When we go down further, though, anybody, I think, that had any of this intelligence should have rang the bell loudly. Look, I was on January 1st. I remember I'm on a call with Kevin McCarthy and other Republican members, and I said, look, there's going to be violence on the 6th. Of course, Kevin McCarthy dismissed me, and thought that was overheated rhetoric.
Adam Kinzinger. That would be the January 6th criming, the seditious conspiracy, the overthrow of the United States government.
Not the Mar-a-Lago criming.
Yeah. But also, I thought we should cover, Jeffrey Toobin said the John Durham investigation is a disgrace and a fiasco, 2 acquittals at a trial in a system where the feds win 95% of their cases. Trump and Barr said Durham would prove the Russia investigation unjustified. He has proven the opposite. If only there was someone that could talk about full investigations, that are Bill Barr is behind. If only there was someone with a really good sense of humor, because we made this his jingle. Good morning, Michael Cohen.
Good morning, Stephanie. How are you?
Good. You have a good enough sense
I like
of
how
humor.
you guys are taking a little advantage of the says who.
Yes.
Interestingly enough on the says who. I got a lot of ribbing for that. There are memes all about it. People who are using the various different says who's or more on TikTok and things like that. Here's the interesting thing about that says who. That was with Breonna Keeler on CNN. I was right.
Yes.
And I never got the credit for it.
I said this
so
to you.
I'm gonna play a little Donald for a second. I never got the credit. Quite frankly, I was right. And how do you attack somebody when they're right?
That's right.
Right. In this specific case,
Yes.
I knew what I was talking about because the polls are never right. The polls, the system that they use are just flawed. And instead, they should be using more social media to a more expansive group where all you need to do is just to click.
Yeah.
Instead of having somebody call your house and look, I get these phone calls all the time and I just hang up on them. But yes, says who, I was right.
I said that to you last time you were on. You were right. And I did have to ask. I don't know if you'll answer, but the polling data that Paul Manafort shared with Russia in those swing states where Trump eked out a victory, did you know something about that? Was there something more behind that says who than we knew at the time?
So I had seen the poll that they were going to be referencing, though they never referenced it by name. And the poll was of 800 people or 1,000 people, which is a huge poll in the old way method of doing it, picking up the phone. So I know that Stephanie Miller, for example, is a hard Democrat, and that she's been voting for 30 years and has never voted for a Republican in her entire life, regardless of who it was.
Actually, I voted for Ronald Reagan.
I know that if I call you, I know what the answer is going to be before I even speak to you.
Right.
And if I'm successful in getting you, the poll that they did, it was something like 800 people were, staunch Democrats, and 100 were Republican, and 100 were independent. So I knew where the poll was going to go. And so why I had said says who. I was hoping to draw out for her the name of the poll so that I could then use the statistics that I knew on that poll.
Right. Okay. So the new book, obviously, Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. You were just saying, not because it's your book, but it should be really like a cautionary tale that everyone reads. Tell us why.
Revenge is the dissection of the most corrupt investigation into a United States citizen in American history. All right. It's what it was. And what it does is it demonstrates, and I use my case as the example, what happens when you have an autocratic, fascist-minded president to weaponize the Department of Justice to silence a critic, all in hopes of becoming an autocrat, becoming a monarch, the supreme leader. He wants to be just like Vladimir Putin. He wants to be exactly like Kim Jong-un. He wants us as the American citizen to worship every single move that he makes. If he decides that he wants to roll out a couple of missiles going down Pennsylvania Avenue, and it could be in the middle of the winter, -3 degrees outside, he wants you in a MAGA t-shirt with a MAGA hat screaming, clapping, yelling for him as he drives by in a heated car. That's what he wants, because he is a narcissistic sociopath to the nth degree. And he doesn't care about anyone. It's all about his own personal gratification and his need for adulation.
Yeah.
And if he can't get the adulation on his own, he wants to force you to do it.
Well,
so what my story does is it shows you Michael Cohen may have been the first. I was a test pilot for them. Yeah. They now know where they failed. And the fact that they know where they failed, like a football coach, if you have a play that doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board and you figure out how to make it a successful play.
Yeah, well,
that's the problem that we all need to be worried about. And that's why I say revenge is the most important roadmap into understanding what they're doing.
Yeah, well, to destroy, I mean, as someone said, I'm thoroughly enjoying revenge, even though it's scaring the crap out of me. And you said it's why I continue to say it's the Trump playbook on how to destroy democracy. Read it, understand it, combat it. Everybody keeps saying it, Michael, but I've said it over and over. Democracy is on the line in 3 weeks in these midterms. And that, I mean, we were just talking about the Durham investigation. Talk about, this is something else. Bill Barr prosecuting enemies. You were one on that list. The fact that all of these Durham investigation things have blown up is not a surprise, because it's them trying to, fabricate stuff against Trump's enemies, right? And
Stephanie, they didn't do it to me once; they did it to me twice.
Yeah,
they did it to me twice. Interestingly enough, Darren Williams, who's the new head of the Southern District of New York, they just on Monday announced that they could set up some committee on conviction review. I really should remember the exact name, but there's a specific name for it. It's like a conviction review at the SDNY, where you could now petition to have this committee look at what was done to you for determination whether or not the actions that the Southern District of New York or any other federal court in New York, that they acted properly. In my specific case, I'm going to send Darren Williams my book along with a cover letter. And I'll share it with you too, the letter, as soon as I'll put it up on social media, as soon as I get it out by the end of today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
I never committed tax evasion. I never lied to a bank about a HELOC, right? Worse than that, on top of everything, I never paid Karen McDougal. These are all charges. Was I responsible for Stormy Daniels? And I acknowledge it in the book. I acknowledged it in Disloyal, my first book. Yes, I did. I absolutely did, but I did it at the direction of and for the benefit of Donald J. Trump.